Well, I believe that we are live, and welcome to the first episode of Hoboken Talks. I am Rand Hoppe. I am the collection manager at the Hoboken Historical Museum, and I'm here for our first episode with Mark Singleton, and hoping that the that the audio is working well. And there we are. Hey,
Rand, how are you?
I'm good. So we've got a barricade between us. So we're doing our best to actually be a little expressive, not have masks on, and be safe. So hopefully it'll all work out. But I'm gonna pop the logo up. Look at that! I'm popping the logo. I'm gonna put up this other thing, and so we're hoping that we're going to be doing this on a weekly basis. We already have the schedule set up for quite a few weeks, and it's just let's talk about Hoboken. So Mark and I think we figured out we've been friends since like 1993 or something like that.
Yeah, just about 25 years.
Or more. We figured we'd talk about Hoboken because that's why we're here, and that's what Mark and I we do a lot of. You were instrumental in kind of like getting the Washington Street game going. Like because everybody plays the Washington Street game.
Yeah. Well, not everybody might not. Why don't you tell people what it is?
It's and you're walking down the avenue and you're like, what was there before this, and what was there before that? So right. I've done that on trivia night and stuff like that, and it's a fun thing. Please, we look forward to your comments. You can comment in the chat, and we'll do our best to respond, but we will also have like time at the end of our conversation for some more Q&A if you want to do something. But we'd like to hear from you. Are you seeing us? Are you hearing us?
Is anyone out there?
Is anybody out there? Did Rand set the technology up correctly? I'm assuming so because everything kind of says that everything's good, but we'd love to hear from you. So we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we are on YouTube. So looking forward to. There's Val. Hi, Val. Hang on. Val's here. Hooray! Okay, good, Val. Thanks for checking in. So we will. So let's like bring up a slide. What do you say, Mark?
Yep.
Why don't we?
One of the things when Rand talked to me about doing this, I realized is that May in 2020, so this past May in 2020 was the 50th anniversary of my coming to Hoboken. And I didn't obviously come here of my own volition. I was brought here by my family. So this first section of the slides can sort of be the hippies come to town.
That's right.
So this is myself, my sister Nancy, and my sister Jill, right around 1970 when we came to Hoboken. And we were definitely flower children, and being born in the early 60s to two parents who were discovering themselves in the 60s and becoming hippies. And so the next slide will show you what we looked like when we drove into Hoboken. This was us in our Volkswagen van. That is not my mom. That's a good friend, Gail Sassetti. But anyway, that was my sisters and I and some friends in our 1970 Volkswagen van, which we had for about 15 years after that.
Oh wow!
Which is pretty cool.
Wow.
So yeah.
So where did you come from?
Yeah, so I guess that's a fair question. I was born up in Sussex County, New Jersey, which is up in the northwest corner of around Newton area, Sparta area, actually in a place called Lake Shawnee. Which is outside Jefferson Township.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
My father was a daily news reporter, and he was making the long commute from Sussex County to New York to work over on 42nd Street, over by Grand Central.
Right.
And it was a long commute.
Yeah.
And, and it was also pretty much of a Lily White Lake community, and my mom and dad have described that they really wanted us kids to have more of a multicultural experience. And, I think they kind of outgrew that lake community in many, many ways.
Right.
I'll never forget, it was in May in 1970. My family put us in a train from Denville, New Jersey, and we were told we were moving to Hoboken. So we got into a train and we got out in the Erie Lackawanna station on late April, early May night, and it was drizzly and it was a little bit cold, and we walked up Washington Street for the first time. And I have to tell you, for three kids from the exurbs of New Jersey, it was quite an experience. And we walked up the avenue and we saw places like Lemel's Pork Store, and we saw all of these bars, lots of bars. And, it's one of those memories that you have that involves sights and smells and sounds.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that walk up the avenue. And we walked up to 9th and Bloomfield, where our parents showed us this brownstone on 9th and Bloomfield. And my sister Jill remembers saying to herself, okay, so we're poor. And so now we've obviously come upon hard times, and we've moved into this house, which is a bit of an old ramshackle brownstone on 9th and Bloomfield. A gorgeous brownstone in real life.
Right.
But at the time, that was her thought.
Yeah.
And we got to experience things that we had never experienced before, like water bugs.
Right.
Hoboken in the 70s was a very different place. One of the memories from that time was, if you ever see any old pictures of Hoboken from the 70s, there's a lot of litter around.
Yeah.
And in my childhood, when you finished a pack of ho-hos or something, you just threw the packet on the floor. And so
Yeah.
Hoboken was a messy place. And probably that night we walked up in the rain, we probably smelled Maxwell House coffee as well, because Maxwell House was still producing and sending coffee grinds and smells into the air on the
Especially rainy days, yeah.
Especially
Right.
rainy days.
Yeah, the air pressure
Yeah.
kept the smell down, yeah.
So we moved into this brownstone on 9th and Bloomfield in 1970, and it began my 50-year love affair with the town. I've never really lived anywhere else. So my wife Carol and I live in a house around the corner from where I grew up, literally on the same block.
Right.
So it was a bit of a culture shock. Hoboken in the 70s was an interesting place to grow up. I remember thinking, we had a couple friends in the suburbs and we'd have to be driven to their house. When I landed on 9th and Bloomfield Street, there was a group of about 15 to 20 kids who were there,
Yeah.
ready for me and ready to be played with. I really thought I had died and gone to heaven. It was a wonderful, wonderful place to grow up in that way. Also, my bicycle got stolen the second day I was there.
Nice.
That happens.
Yeah.
If you get to a city, what do
Yeah,
I know?
you learn, yeah.
And about 9 years later, I'll never forget my friend who lived around the corner on Garden Street. I guess probably 9 years worth of rain finally wore off the spray paint, and my bike was revealed underneath it. So I said to my friend, I said, "That's my bike." So obviously, I had gotten a new bike by then. So
Right. Well, I remember you said that, like, recently when we had the big windstorm around Christmas time,
Yeah.
right? You're like, the streets, it looked like it did in the old days, right?
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
everybody's recycling got blown all over the place.
It was a
right?
Thursday night, and there was litter everywhere. Yeah, that's right. It was a Thursday night. So that was us, and I don't think a lot of the kids a lot of the people in Hoboken were ready for us at the time. We definitely stood out.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Hoboken was very working class. Not many people who look like us around, and we talked different than them, or they talked different than us. Another thing I remember is when I went to school for the first time in Joseph F. Brandt School. Back then, we still said the Pledge of Allegiance and sang sort of patriotic songs.
Right.
And we sang God Bless America every morning. And I'll never forget, I sat there the first day and the kids all sang, God Bless America. And then I said, stand beside her and guide her.
Yeah.
And I was just, what are they saying? They were speaking a different language. On the flip side, they used to say to me, say, Mark, what do you bring groceries home from the store in? And I would say, you bring them home in a bag. And they would like, look, he's So there was a lot of that going on.
My mom was a Brooklyn girl, and she always made sure that we said bag.
Yeah.
Because she knew that, like, what was going on in Brooklyn, that it was a bag.
Oh yeah, we had people who said Earl for oil, and Earl for boil,
Right,
and
right.
it was a dialect for sure. It's a dialect that is not around much anymore.
So what are we looking at here?
That's Hank's Deli on the corner of 10th and Park. For more recently, it was Trulio's Butcher, and now it's a new cafe that's just
Right.
opened up.
Right.
So that was Hank's Deli, and that's where myself and my sister Nancy, who's in this picture, spent most of our childhood. We all worked there. It was a wonderful little local deli that, where people would come in and buy groceries and put it on account.
Right.
And so we would write their orders in a little, in one of those books.
Yeah.
And, they would pay. Sometimes they wouldn't pay. And, but it was a wonderful place to go. It became a home away from home for myself and Nancy and a lot of other kids on the block. So that's Hank's Deli. And It was a wonderful neighborhood institution that was around for a long time.
And that is Norman.
That's Norman. Yep, that's Norman Parry.
Yeah, and he was a very nice man. as
Very
I
nice
recall.
man. He took care of all the people in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
The store was great. It actually had a working coal stove. It was heated by coal.
Wow.
So one of my jobs was to go down and tamp down the coal and and fill up the heating system and with new coal. It was amazing.
Well, I moved to town in '82, so there are the people who moved to town and went to school or church here, so they have a whole different experience than when you're like, the yuppie who shows up after college,
Yep.
right? So that was my thing. But I did move right around the corner from Hanks, and so Hanks was the place to go.
Yeah.
So
It really
and
was.
I
It really
remember
was.
I remember Norman. I thought Norman was Hank.
Listen. And then there's another picture, I think, me inside there.
Oh yeah, wait, hey, here we go.
Let's see. That's the inside of Hank's.
Oh, that's
That's
it.
where I spent most of my childhood, stocking those shelves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a.
And there
that's
you
me
are.
with my Hoboken high shirt and a whole lot of hair.
Look at that helmet. Holy smokes.
One of my nicknames in Hoboken was Hippie. They called me Hippie.
Oh, they did.
They did, yeah, because of my parents and because of my hair, as you can see. So,
Yeah.
yeah. That was. I worked all through high school in that deli and all through even junior high school, which we went to at the
Wow.
time. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in Hanks. Yeah. And it was fun. Hoboken was a great place to go in. That's just a random photo of this lady that lived on 11th and Washington, and I loved her because she used to walk by my office all the time, and we would say, and she would shrink every year.
She'd
She
get
was
smaller every
The
year.
amazing shrinking woman, and
So-
she's just a neighborhood fixture. I
Yeah.
don't know why she's in there, but she was a lot of fun.
Well, I will say you did provide these photos, a lot of them, and we talked about them beforehand. So, yeah, that's funny. It's like you just keep seeing her, and she keeps getting smaller.
Yeah, she was very.
What do we got here? Oh, all right.
That's my father. As I mentioned, my father Don was a daily news reporter.
Right.
And so this is a picture of him obviously with Bing Crosby. And I said to Rand earlier, he looks high as a kite.
He does. Your father looks quite stoned.
He might well have been. But so it was interesting. My father was a daily news reporter, and when we came to Hoboken, he wrote some stories about Hoboken and what a great place
That's right.
it was.
Yep.
And my mom, very shortly after that, got a real estate license, right? So
Yep.
Maureen Singleton got a real estate license, and my father was a daily news reporter who wrote stories about Hoboken. So for much of my childhood, there was a group of people who literally either blamed or credited, depending how they were telling the story,
Right.
my family for the entire Renaissance of Hoboken.
That's right.
You know,
Yes.
So I had to live with that baggage for a long time.
I bet.
That my family literally single-handedly caused the Renaissance
Yes.
of Hoboken.
Yes.
Of course that was
Of course.
But they were always said, your dad and mom brought those New Yorkers over.
Yeah. Well, we do have. I think there's an article that Don wrote that ended up in like a PSENG magazine. We have that in our archives.
Yep.
If you go and search on the archives of the collections on our website, you can find some of those.
Yeah.
Those.
And the
treats,
fact is,
you know.
Hoboken had this beautiful housing stock, still does.
Still
and I
does,
think my mom,
yeah.
And my mom and dad, their real gift was that they recognized what beautiful
Yeah.
homes they were. And they bought that brownstone on 9th and Bloomfield for $23,000 in 1970, and they were the laughing stock of the block.
They were.
No,
So
people thought they
nobody
were
was-
crazy
Yeah,
because
nobody
urban
was-
flight was going on at the time. Everyone was leaving the city.
Right. Right.
And, so my mom became a real estate broker so that she could help other friends buy brownstones in Hoboken.
Right.
She's still in the real estate business today, as am I. We opened
Yeah.
up our family business in '85. So,
Yeah. Who else did your dad meet?
yeah, like so
Got any highlights?
my dad was a special features reporter, and one of the features he did was on John and Yoko, probably in '73, I don't know, sometime around then. So we spent a significant amount of time with John and Yoko living in their flat over in the Village.
West Village, right?
Yeah, and my mom went over with them a few times, and they hung out there. And one day, John actually called the house, and I got to speak to him on the phone. So, speaking to John Lennon on the phone was pretty damn cool, I have to say.
Not something everybody gets to do.
And my father came home with some really cool pictures and doodles from John and notes, which of course he lost over time, much to my chagrin. But anyway, yeah, so he was, that was the type of reporter he was. He did a lot of special features.
Yeah.
He was also the first reporter to be allowed into Attica after the riots.
That's
That
right.
That
Yep.
was a highlight of his career as
Yeah.
well. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had some fun back in the day with the recording of the the John interview or something like that.
He had
There
some
was like
cassette tapes of him interviewing.
cassette tapes and digitization and so
It was kind of fun.
a lot of
It was
fun.
kind of
Yeah.
fun.
What's next? Oh, so this is a few photos. I think there's 3 of them or so from the Michael Flanagan collection. We had a show here at the museum 3 years ago. All of it, mostly his black and white work from the 70s and 80s. And well, Michael Flanagan lived across the street from you guys, right? So he was so. Tell us about why this photograph is here.
Well, I asked Ren to put these photographs in because to me, when I saw them in the museum, the exhibit, and thankfully the museum has all of Mike's work. So it's a wonderful museum. You can see it in the archives. But this picture and this group of pictures represents my childhood in a nutshell. This is what we did on every summer day, of my childhood. We sat on stoops. This is Rosanna and Bobby Webb, and another one of David Yanisey later.
I think that,
these are my friends. This is a stoop around the corner from my block, and this is what we did. So this picture brings back lots of memories for me, and it really reminded me. Seeing Bobby Webb in that picture reminded me of a story which kind of encapsulates my childhood.
All right.
It was an August day. It was a hot, sunny day, and Bobby Webb came up to me, and I was sitting on my stoop, and I was the only one around, and he said, "Mark, you got to come with me." And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Eddie Fang touched my sister, hit my sister. So I have to go beat him up." And I said, "Well, okay. What does that have to do with me?" As you can see, I'm not a huge guy. But Bobby said, "You have to come because Eddie Fang never goes anywhere without Louis Cheese." And I swear these are all really the names of these people.
Okay.
So I had to go with a baseball bat and be the backup to make sure that Louis Cheese didn't get involved with Bobby Webb as he beat up Eddie Fang.
Okay.
So that was kind of my childhood in a nutshell. And of course, I was, Hoboken, as much as it was sort of, I often describe it as a cross between like sort of our gang comedies and West Side Story. It was kind of a tough place as well.
Sure.
It was violent at times.
Yep.
And, there were fights and there were rumbles and, we used to have rumbles against the kids from the Shades.
Right.
That was a big enemy
those
with the kids from the
yeah,
Shades.
because
But most of it was this kind of thing, hanging out on stoops,
Right.
really enjoying ourselves, having a great time.
Yeah.
And that's John Olson, and it was just a bunch of really good friends. But Rosanna, who was there, she was the thing on the block. Yeah.
That's great.
She was great, but she's still a dear friend of mine. She still lives in town, so I still see her quite often.
All right. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I'm loving the Beatles Yellow Submarine T-shirt and just the.
And the socks we wore.
Yeah, we do. The
socks with
socks.
stripes.
There aren't any uncomfortably short shorts.
There you go. See Bobby's socks there?
Oh, wait a minute. What?
That's the kind of socks we wore through the bicycle.
Oh yeah, sure, of course, that right. Yep. No, and the English racer bike and the butterfly handlebar bike with the banana seat and the sissy bar.
And I'm not sure who that is. I could guess, but I'm not 100% sure who the kid with the bike is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But,
No.
I thought those were very evocative, and that's true of a lot of Michael's work. They're really seeing his work really reminded me of the 70s in my childhood. They're wonderful, wonderful shots.
Yeah,
So,
we have a lot of them, and
Yeah,
they're
a lot
they're
of them.
uncatalogued, and we're taking really good care of them. But it would be something someday to really have somebody do the archival work on them.
yeah.
All right, what do we got here?
This is high school, In high school, I went to Hoboken High. I graduated in 1979. So this was some of us in the choir. That's me on the left, obviously, still with long hair. and that's Sean Street and Bob Meyer, who was the choir director, and Alice Janice, who is an old friend.
Sure.
So that was us preparing for some musical. I was obviously looks like
Might be the Sound of Music, perhaps?
We did that, but of course my senior play was West Side Story.
Yes.
We did.
Oh,
Yeah, so
there's some more.
yeah, we did. We had bands back in the day too.
Sure.
I mean, we did a lot of music, and that's John Olson and Joe Mazzo, and me in the middle there, and Larry Rubin. That was a bunch of us who were in a band together called Odyssey. We called ourselves, and later on, like about 10 years ago or so, 6, maybe less than that, a bunch of people from that generation got together and started the Hoboken All-Star Music.
I
Scene.
know, yeah.
And we got together as adults and played, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. We raised a lot of money for the for the Elks Fund.
Right.
You know, so we did some good.
And you were on the sax.
Yes, I play saxophone. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So it was a blast. It was a blast. And this is our production of West Side Story.
Hoboken High School.
Hoboken High. Hoboken High has a long tradition of really, really good musicals. They got better after I left.
Okay.
So this was West Side Story, and I played Riff, and this was the scene where I get killed at the end of the first act.
So dramatic, yeah.
I was a star for half the play.
Yeah, that's right.
But it was a lot of fun, and I had a good experience in Hoboken High. It was,
Yeah.
it was a good experience, I have to say. And music is one of the things. Being in the band and being in the marching band and being in the play. That's one
Yeah.
of the things that kept.
Yeah, we didn't put the marching band picture in, though, because it was like, Mark sent me a picture. He's like, you know what block this is? And I'm like, yeah. And as you said, it looks like the Heights or Union City, so we didn't put it in, but it was the marching band.
Yeah,
It was pretty
a
cool.
lot of my friends, from marching band days, are still good friends of mine, and we
Yeah.
still talk a lot. Yeah.
All right,
So that was
let's
West
see what
Side
we got.
Story. And this is the waterfront from my childhood. As you can see, it's
It's
the Empire
different.
State Building, the Chrysler Building, and One Penn Plaza.
Yeah,
Those were the extent of the high-rises.
yeah.
And if you look at that today,
Mm.
we could have taken a picture today just for comparison.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much it's changed. And that probably wasn't even 1970. That was probably 1975 or 80.
Yeah, yeah.
It stayed that way for a
It
significant
did.
amount
It
of time.
did, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so then we have these guys. So these are two photos from the Mecca Brothers. We had an exhibit of their work up here in the upper gallery where we're shooting this fantastic live stream. But we had these great color photographs from these brothers, and you kind of specifically asked for. You actually asked for a Carolyn Carlson photo, but I couldn't find that, so I found this.
This is great. Yeah, this is a picture that was up, probably around the old Maxwell House Piers.
Yep.
And, that's where I spent a good portion of my childhood as well. I will admit, I never voluntarily swam in the Hudson like these kids.
Oh, okay.
I fell in the Hudson
Okay.
3 or 4 times.
Okay.
But my friend Boubier and I used to fish and crab a lot at the
Wow.
Hudson River. So I did a lot of fishing and a lot of crabbing in the Hudson. So the Hudson back then was a very smelly, different river than it is today.
Oh man, yeah.
The only things you could catch in the Hudson River in the 70s were eels, which were really disgusting. This little fish that were called Tommy cods. They were small little codfish about this big.
Wow.
And crabs.
Wow.
Blue crabs by name, but weren't blue in
Blue in the Hudson in Hoboken. Ugh.
But they were big, and we would crab and catch them. They were a lot of fun.
Were they delicious?
Not to me, they weren't.
Okay, that's why I wanted to know.
But there was always somebody who wanted them. So yes, people
Really?
did eat them. Absolutely.
Oh man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have another one. Yeah. So and this was so that is the Maxwell House factory back there, right? This is 11th and Hudson.
Yep.
And
The beach is right to the right there. You can't really see it.
yeah, I mean it was Bare Ass Beach, right?
Yeah.
So that was the beach, where the beach is now. So yeah.
But where Union Dry Dock is today, that was sort of our playground because there was a set of old abandoned buildings.
The older
there,
buildings, yeah.
And you'd have to climb through a fence to get there.
Right.
And we had the run of these 3-story factory buildings to ourselves.
Right.
And it's where we spent all of our time. And
We were talking about it before, and you were like, "Yeah, it was a Lord of the Flies in there, man."
it really was. It was our own little world. And we won't talk too much about everything that went on.
No,
in there,
no,
but
no,
Let's
no.
just say it was a free for all, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then there's this.
This is Maxwell's.
It's Maxwell's. It's yeah.
So I dug this picture out of a file in my office because, as I said, Maureen, my mom, was a real estate broker for many, many years. And she had this building for sale when she worked for the Muller Agency.
Right.
And so it was a 6 apartments and the tavern. The Maxwell Tavern was an old, what we used to call a bucket of blood. It was
Oh,
a place that
okay.
was a place that the Maxwell workers would go,
Right.
cash their checks,
Yep.
have some drinks before and after work,
Yep. Yep.
and hang out and
Yeah.
have some food. And there was a family that became interested, and and that was Steve Fallon and his family. And that's another great picture of the front of Maxwell's that it looked like in my childhood.
1974, yeah.
1974, yeah.
Bob Sky.
Bob Sky is a local photographer who took that picture. That picture hung over the jukebox, near the jukebox in Maxwell's for 25 years or
Yep,
more.
yeah.
And I snatched it the day we
I
closed.
mean, you could even see from 74, I'm going to go back to 78, how the facade changed and the sign came down, and
Yep.
there was some
There
stuff
was a
going on.
renovation.
Yeah, and not only that, but you could see, was it a candy store next door?
There was.
Yeah, and then there was a pizza parlor.
That's right. Flying pizza.
You told me that. That's the only reason I know.
It was the best. Flying pizza was the best.
Flying
Yeah.
pizza, yeah. So,
That's a good one for Washington Street game.
yeah,
People
Flying
get that.
Pizza.
Yeah.
Cosmo. Wasn't it?
Yeah, they had Flying Pizza had a good pinball machine. That was
Nice.
I liked it. You know,
Nice.
Pizza wasn't the best.
Okay.
But, they had a good pinball machine.
So then Steve kind of took over the back room, right? I
Yeah.
mean, were you actually friends with the Fallons, or?
I wasn't
Were you knew
involved in
them?
the early music industry part. I mean,
Right.
I was friends with them insofar as I drank there.
Right.
I was a
Right.
good customer.
Yeah.
And my mom knew them well because she had sold them the place.
Right.
And it was a very influential place because in 1978, opening up a new business in Hoboken like that was risky.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
Right.
And Steve did things like he started serving brunch.
I remember.
Unheard
yeah,
of
I know.
in
I remember
Hoboken at the time.
Ann and Mario, right?
Yeah.
Did
And
the-
in Mara,
did the
they
brunch.
started serving brunch.
Yeah.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
And he also, because he was a music industry person and into music, he started. This is his card from Coyote Records. Yeah. I believe.
People would send him their either to their tapes because they wanted to play at Maxwell's, or when he started the record label, they would send him tapes as well. So he had a bathtub full of tapes. So thus his business card was.
Right. So, needless to say, I spent a lot of time at Maxwell's. It's where we met.
Yep.
More importantly, I have to say, much more importantly, is where I met my wife.
Correct.
So my wife Carol and I met there.
Yep. Yep.
We spent lots of years in Maxwell's.
Yeah.
I not only I went from one side of the bar to the other. At some
Right.
point, I started working there
Yep.
weekends and
Yep.
ended up managing the place for a while. And,
Yep.
lots of good memories from
Yeah,
Maxwell's.
I started going there in like '84, and I met Carol there. She was she was serving, and I worked the door there for a little while too. And so yeah, it was really a great place.
Carol came over from Ireland with a backpack and like $200 in her pocket, and ended up in Hoboken and in
Yep,
Maxwell's.
yep.
Yeah. I always used to joke with my kids, by the way, when they were younger. I would say, "What are the chances that this girl from the rural countryside in Ireland would come to Hoboken?" And,
Yeah.
So it was a good story.
Yep.
That's the Madison on 14th Street.
Yeah.
And that's the Madison as it was. And the man sitting down there smiling in the front is Tom Vizzetti. And I think that's a Flanagan photo too, isn't it?
I am not sure. It is not part of what was scanned for the show.
Okay.
So it might be in there
Yeah.
because we have lots of boxes that weren't included, of
Yeah.
things that weren't included.
Yeah.
But not from the show.
Well, Tommy Vizzetti ran, it was essentially a flop house is what it was. All these men, some of whom were ex-merchant Marines, some of them were, just local guys. Some of them
Factory
were
guys.
dyed-in-the-wool alcoholics,
Yeah, yeah.
and Tommy gave them a place, and they would stay in the Madison bar. They would sleep upstairs.
Yeah.
It was an interesting joint.
Yeah.
But Tommy took care of them, and as some of you might know, the story didn't end there. Of course, Tommy Vizzetti
Right.
went from that to becoming the wackiest mayor in America. That was from the Daily News Sunday
was.
Sunday magazine.
Yeah.
Tom Vizzetti was a wonderful man, one of my real heroes in life. Tom Vizzetti he was that guy in the flop house, and he became a political gadfly of the First Order.
Yes.
He used to go to every Board of Ed meeting. He used to go to every city council meeting. He would bring a portable typewriter and type resolutions as the meeting was going on to present.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And he got it in his head that he was going to run for mayor. And, he was going to root out corruption, and he was going to root out all the, and he ran for mayor.
Not just that, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
He would walk around with a broom
Yes.
and say that he was going to sweep the dirt out of City Hall.
Yeah.
You see this guy with a bullhorn and a broom in a loud, like, plaid jacket.
Yeah. And if you ever met him, he would meet you at the line. He would say, your good looks are only exceeded by your wonderful personality, or something like that.
It's people like you that make this town what it is today.
That's another one. But my favorite was, Mark, it's not that we're so good, it's that they're so bad. That was my favorite. And no one gave him a snowball's chance in hell of getting elected as the mayor in a town that had traditional machine politics, where we had very few mayors who all served for a very long time.
Yes.
And Tom got elected in 1985, and he became the mayor of Hoboken, and it sort of spurred a reform movement, which myself and my family got involved in. And this picture is from 1987 when we were running a campaign for 5th Ward Council. Helen Minogue, who is a great friend of the museum and a great friend of Hoboken, instrumental in forming the Environment Committee,
right?
Citizens for, Codes for a Better Waterfront, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Helen Minogue was one of those.
Quality of Life Coalition.
Quality of Life Coalition, yep. And I was her campaign manager, and that was a bunch of us sitting in the campaign office on the corner of 9th and Garden Street.
Yep.
We lost that election by 1 vote.
Never forget it.
We lost the election by 1 vote, and then we went to court. And we had to show enough irregularity to prove that we needed a new election, which was only 1 vote. We did. We got a new election, but of course at that point there were no distractions, so the entire machine came down upon us, and we lost handily in that election. And the night of the special election was the night that Tommy Mazzetti died, actually.
Yeah.
He didn't serve out his entire full term.
Right.
So he was a mayor for a short time, but a wonderful man, and a part of Hoboken's colorful
yeah, that's for sure.
Which is very dear to my heart.
Yeah.
So I love him greatly.
So this next one is there's a huge version of this printed on canvas out in the walkway in the passageway here at the museum, and it exists because of you. So what the heck?
Now, again, back to the mid-'80s, when I was running not only Helen O's campaign, but I ran a campaign for mayor for a guy named Joe Delafave, who was a city council member who ran for mayor.
Yep.
I ran a lot of campaigns, won very few, but I think that's a badge of honor because it was a real machine we were fighting against at the time. But Joe Delafave brought that up to my office at Singleton Galman one day and said they were throwing it out. And could he put it on the wall? And it stayed on my back room on the wall for 10 years. And I always loved it because it's 1947.
Yeah.
It's Hoboken as it looked. And if you look at the waterfront pictures here, look at the activity on our waterfront.
I actually I did a detail of the Uptown Piers.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's what was happening in
1947.
1940, 1950s.
Yeah.
And up in Bethlehem Steel. And if you look at the southern end, you can see the ferry terminal where the boats were going to New York.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was pre the tubes, but it was certainly
No. Yeah. But you could pick out the buildings. You can find the shadow of the airplane.
Yep.
It's like.
It was before the
8 feet by 6 feet, or 6 feet by 3 feet, or I don't know. It's a big print, and it's amazing that they did it.
Yeah. And you can see all the housing along the western edge has not been built. Lots of vacant land up in the northwest corridor.
That's right. Yeah.
And also the piers down below Stevens there those are the piers where On the Waterfront was filmed.
Yeah, the Holland America stuff. Yep.
And is the Stevens boat there? No.
There is a boat, but I don't think it's the dorm.
No,
that didn't show up until later.
Later in the 60s, Stevens.
But the thing that happened, right, was that you had that thing, and then I got all caught up in scanning.
Right.
So then I was like, Mark, give me that thing. I need to make a scan of this thing because it's just too much. So we took it out of the frame. I took it and I scanned it at a ridiculously high resolution. And stitched it all together, and we agreed that I just had to do it. Whatever it was, just I have these things where like I see something like that, I wanted to scan it. So then we donated the files to the museum, and they were like, put it on the website, and then you were like looking at that thing in your office, and you're like, okay, museum. Yeah. So we actually have it in the collection now.
No, that's the right place for it. It's the right place for it. In fact, Bob Foster, who was here earlier, said he had been coveting it when it was in City Hall for a long time. and
Yeah.
wanted it. So it belongs here.
Yeah.
It's where it belongs.
Yeah, we've people love it. We've printed it on canvas for people. We've printed it on paper. I've printed it on paper for people. I think somebody has like a huge version of it in their barn in Connecticut. You know, people are like, I love it. You know, and then we'll work out some things. So it's really been a lot of fun, and it gets a lot of traffic out in the passageway. People just love looking at it. So
Well, among the reasons you and I are such good friends, Randy, is because you're like, you're a Hoboken geek for these things too. That's
right.
I love your passion for Hoboken, so I'm glad you're here.
yeah. Oh, and then there's this.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So
Sometime in the late '80s, I won in an auction a Cessna trip up the Hudson River with Mike Coleman, who was another.
oh jeez, really, Mike Coleman?
Mike
Okay,
Coleman,
I didn't
yeah,
know
he
him,
was
but
an
I know who he
pilot,
is.
Yeah. So my friend Declan and I drove to Sussex County, and we flew back, and we flew up the Hudson River and
Oh wow.
down Washington Street, and I took these pictures out the window.
Yeah.
But that's the northern waterfront, and
This
we're
is
not-
where we're sitting right now.
Yeah,
That's the
building.
machine shop.
Yeah, and all of that was the piers that are now gone. That was the T building, which
Yeah.
we used to call the Delaquila building.
I used to call it Old Shit and Piss.
Okay.
Because it was brown and yellow. It was the ugliest building in town,
Right. But
as far as I was concerned.
now, do you remember the disco that existed there for
No.
a few years?
No.
Oh, I was hoping
There
you
was a
remember the
disco in there?
Somebody decided to open up a disco on the top floor of that abandoned building for a while, and it was Carol went there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
It didn't last very long.
There was a recording studio in there, like Lenny Kravitz recorded in there or something like that, right? I remember that. But it was a strange beast. But it's now not that. So here's another angle.
There was also an old fishing boat called the Palace.
Oh, the Palace,
So
that's
you
right.
could go fishing on a party boat out of Hoboken.
Yeah,
back then. I did
yeah.
it a few times myself.
Probably one of these
Back
piers,
a little
right?
bit more, yeah, off the camera. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another one.
But it's just, I think it's great to see what, this was obviously post-boom times, right? Not much was happening here. This
Right.
was sort of the defunct portion of the waterfront where
Yeah.
nothing was really happening.
Oh, here's downtown Jersey
That's
City.
downtown Jersey City, yeah. The other
So
direction.
they saved their fancy sign.
Yes. So that's the Colgate sign, and one of the great losses in Hoboken, in my view, is the fact that we lost the good to the last drop sign.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that was a big loss.
But in that picture there, right on the left, is where the new that big building went.
Oh, this stuff.
Yeah, there's all big.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, I don't know the name of it, but so here's some more
Back in
Hoboken.
Hoboken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we drove down. That's over the Stevens Field.
Stevens Field,
You can see St. Matthews
Burchard
there.
Building,
See St.
St.
Matthews,
Matt's. Yep,
yeah.
St. Matt's.
And that's going down Washington.
Washington Street. Yeah,
So it was fun.
yeah. And this one, River Road.
Yeah.
So this is the area you were talking about, where those
Yes.
the Pennsylvania Railroad buildings were.
That's right.
And you can see them on the waterfront.
Yeah.
Other objects we have in the collection, but there were buildings here, and that
Yeah.
was your.
That was what we called down the piers. Where you go?
Yeah,
Going down the piers.
going down the piers.
That's
Yeah,
what we called it.
temporary autonomous zone. All right. So,
That's right.
so this is my favorite.
Yeah.
We actually use this. I use this as a Windows like lock screen backdrop.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it just kind of is a great shot.
It's the Maxwell House plant. And again, we mentioned it
Maxwell House
earlier,
plant.
but I'm not sure you can really get how much Hoboken smelled like coffee.
Oh my God!
Um,
You can get a little bit of it near
14th Street. Yeah.
14th Street
Yeah.
now with
But the
Culver's.
whole town, in fact, if you parked your car in 11th and Hudson, it would have black blind on it.
It's like what?
Yeah, pollution control of
Yeah.
any kind. So we all grew up addicted to coffee, and I'm proudly still addicted today.
Yeah, me too. Here's New York. So here's the Javits Center and the Hudson
That's in the
Yards.
arts, yeah, pre that, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So you won a bid in an auction for a plane ride.
Yeah, and it was fun. I mean,
Yeah.
Mike Coleman was an interesting guy, and
Right.
we just jumped in a plane with this guy. He's like, okay, take us up in this
Yeah.
tiny plane.
Yeah.
And,
Well, that's just Court Street and 5th,
Yeah.
I think. Oh, so then there's this. So we were talking about this beforehand. So I got caught up in pre-web internet, right? And you were doing that too. It was
Very much pre-web.
Like logging on, dialing up bulletin boards, services, like CompuServe, AOL, Genie, even before AOL, because that AOL was huge. Yeah. But I got caught up in this stuff, and one of the things that really interested me was the fact that the government in Santa Monica had a public information technology service that you could access in the library. You could do it from your home if you had the equipment, and you could access government services and functions. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So I was looking for a way to see if I could do something like that here. I guess I was on Echo in New York, which was an online service, and there was a service in the Bay Area in San Francisco called The Well, right? And that's how I got all caught up in all that stuff. And just one day, like, I'm like thinking about like how am I gonna do something like this in Hoboken, and I walked past your store, and we knew each other somewhat socially, but you were in the back, and you were clearly online doing something. Like you had the modem, and you had that Packard Bell.
300 baud modem.
And I was just like, I'm going to go in and talk to Mark, and we talked, and we hit it off, and we had and so we actually had a meeting. Like we had this Al Berg joined us. He was also a local guy who was online. I don't think he was on Echo, but he might have been on something else. I'm not sure, but anyhow, it was a fun thing. We got on cable news, and I think it was basically if something might have happened if the right person won the mayoral campaign. Yeah. But I think but nothing happened. But we became really good friends.
And it was also interesting. We were talking about things like information exchange, electronic information exchange over the internet long before.
No, that's right. It was before the web.
It was before the web.
Right. Yeah. So there was the internet. But Al Gore invented the internet. And then the web came along. Tim Berners-Lee did HTML, and then that happened. So it was that interesting time when before the World Wide Web actually happened.
But I think it's fair to say that we spent a lot of our time playing online trivia.
Online trivia on Genie.
In my office.
In your office.
Drinking Rolling Rocks.
Yeah. And doing our best to come up with ways to make people laugh.
Right.
That was really, it wasn't about winning the contest. Correct. It was about like running gags.
About Bishop Tutu.
Bishop Desmond Tutu.
We shouldn't go down that rabbit hole.
No, but anyhow, it was very funny. We were really having a lot of laughs. So and thankfully, people were kind.
Yeah.
And that's the last of our photos. So if anybody has anything they'd like to ask us or comment on, we've got a few comments. Let's see, where are we? We have Carol telling us that it's a lovely chat. Thank you, Carol.
That's my wife.
That's Mark's wife.
My lovely wife.
And Thaler made a comment. I don't remember what she was commenting on. It was a while ago, but it's just hopefully we're going to have a lot more. We're trying to do this on a weekly basis, so it's going to change, and we're going to figure out what we're doing, and we'll get Mark a T-shirt at some point.
You better.
But that's I don't know what.
There's so much to talk about. I mean, before we started, I was saying to Rand, it's like how can we talk about 50 years in 45 minutes? And there's so many parts of Hoboken's history that we didn't hit. We could spend an hour talking about politics. We could spend an hour talking about gentrification in general and those type issues.
Yep.
I think what I really think about looking back on the 50 years I've been in town is that it really is a love affair. I love Hoboken.
Yeah.
Being a real estate professional, I get to bring other people into town, which is a job that my mom taught me the love for. And, I've just always loved Hoboken, and it's been easy to help other people come here and see this.
I just can't, I see the way other people live, and I don't want to live that way. I want to live the way I live in Hoboken.
Yeah.
I love the way that we live here. Like, just,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, now I have 2 kids who are raised in Hoboken, right? They're now in college. My daughter, when she was young, my daughter Emma, we went out to the suburbs one time to visit a friend, and she said to us, "Dad, the suburbs are confusing," because she couldn't figure out what was going on. Is it a city? Is it the country? And,
Right.
she's a city girl,
Yeah.
and now she's exploring her countryside too.
yeah, it's true. But
I loved growing up here, and I'm glad my kids got to grow up here.
Yeah.
Obviously, lots of challenges from parking to schools to
Sure,
everything else.
sure.
But
Yeah.
I wouldn't have traded it for the world.
yeah,
It's. I'm glad my parents made that decision all those years ago to drag us to Hoboken. And
yeah,
the other funny thing was, they sold a house in Lake Shawnee for like $25,000 and bought a house in Hoboken for $25,000. The house in Lake Shawnee is probably worth about $250,000 now.
Yeah.
The house in Hoboken is worth a
a lot more. Sure.
So
I
it was
know.
a good decision financially.
Yeah. I mean, having been here since '82, it's definitely, it felt to me like being like a suburban middle class guy, and at the whatever, being that yuppie art student dude, post college, I could see that like the middle class was coming back to the cities. They were coming back to Brooklyn. They were coming back to Hoboken. Like there was something that was changing in the way that people were looking at things and saying, "Yeah, the city. It's not like a horrible place. Like we don't mind that." So definitely watched that happen.
It was a safe alternative for lots of people who wanted to come and not live in Manhattan but live closer.
Oh, geez. I mean, yeah, Hoboken is incredible for that. I mean, you can look at this. There's nothing like Hoboken, Weehawken, like that kind of. If you're interested in dealing with Manhattan and the city, it's just incredible that the positioning, because
no doubt.
you don't even have you have it maybe in some parts of Brooklyn, but not whatever.
It's also just such a beautiful town. I mean, it's funny. I still remember though that first rainy day when I see those rows of brownstones. Now it's just fun.
So how do we connect newcomers to the history? That's a good big question.
It's a good question. It's a good question, and because Hoboken, one of the things I worry about is, as we know, it's become a bit of a bedroom community. Most people in Hoboken pass through, and sadly, most of the kids that I grew up with are not in Hoboken anymore because they got priced out. I've been very lucky and blessed to be able to still live here all this time. I think we connected by things like the Hoboken Museum, like the Hoboken Historical Museum, and by like these talks. And, some of these stories I'm very aware are getting lost day by day. There's a rich tradition of longshoremen in Hoboken. And, they have great stories to tell, but it's difficult. But, thank God for the museum. Thank God for the museum.
Yeah. It's Taylor is a new board member, by the way.
Oh,
so
okay.
Welcome and thank you. And we are. That's one of the things that like we definitely have a presence here where we are in Uptown, and when the museum, when we were gifted the space up here, the museum was founded in '86, and I don't remember exactly when all the motions started happening, but we moved in and opened in 2001, right? April 2001, and I know that Bob and some of the other board members who have been around since that whole time, it was like, oh my gosh, Uptown, like that's so far away from everything, Well, it's not anymore. It's Uptown, it's thriving. There's a lot of people, but we don't have a presence or an awareness at like just random out of a hat. So Second and Clinton, we've done surveys and stuff, and it will be like, wow, there's a museum in Hoboken, really, and because the way that people are living here, we're not necessarily getting it out to them that we're doing. That's why we're doing social media and live streaming, and
it's important because Hoboken has a rich history that people should know about.
Yeah.
Even people who are passing through should know the history of Hoboken.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
And we'll just keep doing that kind of. Glenn is just talking about the arson in Hoboken. We do not have time to talk about that, Glenn. It was a very sad and tragic, and we'll probably talk about that again some other time.
Yeah, I would love to do it. I mean, two things I would just recommend real quickly. Try to find a copy of Delivered Vacant, which is a film that was done by a woman named Laura Jacobson. It's a good snapshot of that time.
It is available.
As I said to her, we could talk an hour about that. I have very deep
we definitely
feelings about that as well. I mean, I attended memorial services for classmates when I was a kid, and I remember the fires personally. It was not a great time in Hoboken's history. And which also brings me, I couldn't let this hour pass without putting in a plug for the Hoboken Shelter and St. Matthew's Lunchtime Ministry.
Trying to get us over there, but
I've been a near lifelong volunteer at the Hoboken Shelter. It's a great institution. So if you, and Rand is on the board with me, and if you want to help people who are struggling, that's the way to do it. I always tell the story when I first volunteered at the shelter in '85. I found 3 kids from my high school class who are on the other side of the bread line. I've always been very, very aware that, a lot of people think about homeless and hungry as those people. There are people. There were people that grew up with me, went to school here. More than half the people who are in the Hoboken Shelter at any given time were born and raised in Hoboken. And another 25% were within 5 miles of the place. So these are our people. So that's all. We won't go down. That's another hour. We can talk about the Hoboken Shelter. And I would love to do that. So.
I promise that I will get that event online on YouTube with you and Jacqueline and me talking about the history of the shelter. That was really I just haven't pulled it together, but I will. It was a really nice event that we had, and it does talk a lot about the shelter and some of the the horrible stuff that happened. We on our collections, in the museum's collections. If you, I don't know, how am I going to do this? I don't think I'm going to do it, but if you go to our website and go to collections and search our collections or something like that, I should be more knowledgeable and so not so blah, blah, blah. But if you look up Por la Gente, Por space LA space GENTE, put that in quotes, and you'll see these scrapbooks that were compiled by some of the Puerto Rican activists that were in town. And one of the books is called Arson. And there might even be 2 scrapbooks called Arson. They've all been scanned, and there's a PDF that you can download of the whole scrapbook. Absolutely heartbreaking, incredible story about what was going on, and clippings from the newspapers. It's really, really cool.
And it's important, back to the last question, it's important that new people know that too, because the Hoboken we get to enjoy today came at a price.
It did.
And it comes at a price for people today. So that's all important. Again, there's only so many places we can go tonight, but it's...
How are we doing? We're at 7:52.
Oh.
So, we can kind of... I think,
So I think, we could spend well more than an hour talking about Maxwell sometime. I mean,
we should have some other guests join us for that. That would
we can get Steve Fallon up from Rehoboth one day. That would be fun.
Get him on the Zoom. We can have him be, a dial-in, but if he wants, that would be fun. But we have the photographer Bill Curran, who works here at the museum. He's a great painter. He's going to be talking with John Kahn, photographer. That's going to be really cool. And John took some really great photos that you can see some of them on our website as well. One of my favorites is his shot of the Mighty Fine neon sign. That's a really good one. And it's always good to see Paul Nishampkin. How you doing, Paul? Hey, Paul's on Facebook. Yep. And John Kahn. I think Bill and Jack Silbert are gonna be chatting, so that'll be fun. Good. I'm talking with Lois DeLivio about pulling something together. So we might be talking about some of our times as those crazy artists sleeping on the floor people.
Yeah.
That's what they called it, right? Look at those people over there. They sleep. They don't sleep in a bed.
Yeah.
That's what the artists did. That's when we were doing that. So,
Yeah. That was Hoboken back then. For
It
sure.
was.
A place
It
where
was.
people could come. You
Yeah.
know, artists who really wanted to working artists.
yeah, yeah, and we're still reaching out to people, but hopefully we'll be able to keep it going for a week, a week at a time, and things will get smoother with the setup because I had some stumbling today, and this.
We're gonna have multimedia behind us
green
and movies
screens
going.
I threatened to share your digitization of the West Side Story home movie,
Oh my God!
but I didn't have time to pull that together. But there's
a copy of
there's a
me
copy,
singing and dancing in high school. Believe it or not, it's something that my daughter begged me to get for years and years.
Oh, she did,
There's
yeah.
a long story about how I finally got it, but we got
okay.
it. So it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So stay tuned, folks. We're looking to keep doing this, and please go to our website and look at all the wonderful things we have there. Become a member. We love our members. We love our donors. We love our sponsors, and and Mark will get a T-shirt sometime soon, and maybe he'll get a mask. I don't know.
Ooh, I don't know. I like that. I'm a mask wearer.
So thanks a lot, everybody. We really appreciate it, and
Thanks for
we'll
having
see
me.
you
I
again
appreciate
soon.
it.
All right, man.
Yeah.
It's really fun. All right, I'm going to push the button. Here I go. Bye, everybody.